What's up, channel makers? We asked you to submit YouTube channel ideas so we could rate and review them, and rate and review them we will. We're gonna be reviewing your channel ideas in this video, and we're going to have a list of them rated going out to our Channel Makers Insider. So if you haven't signed up for that, go sign up for that so you can get that list. Now, Ricky has not even seen these ideas yet. I've kept them a secret from him so that he could give his right off the cuff answer of what he would do with these channels and really what he thinks of them.
So Nathan, you get to give your like well thought out response to each one of these ideas, and I get to just like tell you what I think.
So I guess this is just to make me look good, maybe. We're not gonna go into any of these super deep, so if you wanna know more about any one of these specifically, let us know in the comments so that we can cover it in a future video.
I'm actually working on a video right now to go in more detail on how to make more money from your YouTube channels. And I actually think it'd be really cool to go a little bit deeper on some of these. So do not miss out on that opportunity. Let us know which ones you want to hear more about.
We got so many submissions. We're not gonna be able to cover them all, but there were many of them that had multiple people asking for the same one. The first one we're gonna talk about is mental health. This is a super broad niche. I'm interested to hear what you have to think about this one.
I think the very first thing I would say is let's pick an aspect about it, right? Are we talking about, mental health for parents? Are we talking about mental health for in the workplace? I do think that there's plenty of room to expand, but when you start out overly broad, it's going to be really difficult to have a cohesive channel and build a cohesive audience. You really have to find what's going to make you unique. There are a lot of channels about both mental health, self-help, all that kind of stuff. And so you're going to have to figure out an approach that makes you very relatable, watchable. Some channels do extremely well and others, I think, kind of flounder.
And as far as monetization goes, I think there's so many opportunities, especially for affiliate. I hear about BetterHelp all the time. I've never actually looked into it, but nearly every YouTube video or podcast that I ever hear talking about mental health, they're an affiliate with BetterHelp. So I think that there's lots of opportunities out there.
And there's a lot of need for it.
Yes, definitely. The next one is woodworking.
Woodworking is also a pretty broad topic. So again, I think you've got to find something that's going to make you stand out, right? That's going to make you different from other people that are just giving tutorials. So if I were doing woodworking, I think I would definitely want to show a lot of personality. I'd want to have a feel where it's like we're hanging out together. I'm making a project and I'm going to make a joke about something that may or may not have anything to do with the project. Or you could go the opposite direction and have it just be like super quick cuts together, put together, and in the end, there's an amazing start to finish in a very short period of time. Whatever you're gonna do, like figure out what your strengths are. If you have a really dry personality, maybe you should do the quick cuts and stuff where you end up with a really cool product at the end really quickly.
I think woodworking is actually a really cool niche, and it's one that I would probably get into if I had all the tools. And that's actually one unique approach you could probably come at is like just the tools associated with woodworking. There are so many opportunities there.
Lots of great ways to make money in a niche like woodworking.
Next up, we have baking. And now baking is one that I know that Ricky and his family have a lot of experience with. I've tasted some of the very delicate, delicious baked goods there. So I bet you have some things to say about this one.
Once again, baking super broad. I don't think that's problematic, right? Kind of like with woodworking. I think you could explore a lot of different areas of baking. I also think you could make a whole channel just about bread making. Just think of the approach you want to make. What are the strengths that you have? There are a lot of channels out there like this. So again, you need to find sort of your unique approach. But I don't think it's going to be hard if this is something that you do. One barrier to entry, I think, though, is having a good baking kitchen filming setup can be really hard if you're filming out of your home and you have family around. Whereas if you're home by yourself throughout the day, maybe it's not a big deal. So just think about what those barriers to actually filming are and make sure you can overcome them and produce the content.
Fun fact, we actually almost started a baking channel at one point. Maybe there's one in the future, who knows? Next up, we have gaming. This is one that I've actually thought about doing. Now, I'm not a gamer, which is kind of the funny thing about this, but gaming is something that I think would be fun to get into. As far as difficulty, I think this is such an oversaturated niche. And I don't say that in a bad way, I just think there's a lot of people who have an interest in it. And so finding a unique approach, and I know we've said that a couple times with some of these other niches, but finding something that you have that's different would be really valuable, or just coming at it from a different angle rather than just straight up gameplay. Maybe it's something that's game specific that you know how to do. Maybe it's tutorials. Maybe it is something where it's just like, I'm the worst gamer in the world and here's me playing these games. I don't know, but whatever it is, I think you would have to take a very unique approach.
If you're not a good gamer and you want to do a gaming channel, it could really, you could make a really funny channel that's like, I am the worst gamer. Every time you go to play, like there's gameplay and it's like, everybody's like, noob, like, at least that's what they said when
Yes,
I
right.
tried to game like 20 years ago. But like, I do think there's still room for new people because the internet is that huge. If you're just hoping to be able to play games and live stream, you know, on Twitch, chances are it's not going to work out very well for you unless there's something really, really special about you and your gaming.
The next one that we have is dogs and like pet grooming specifically. This is one that was actually suggested by you guys in the community posts multiple times. I guess it makes sense. We must have a lot of pet lovers here on the Channel Makers channel. So what do you think about pets and pet grooming?
So, I mean, again, pet's super broad, pet grooming. It's a nice way to kind of niche down. Honestly, if I were going to cover grooming, I think there's so much you could do, just a whole channel just on grooming and never run out of content. I think about the guy that does the lawns, right?
Yeah.
Like, what if you made a channel where you literally found the dirtiest, nastiest animals? You find the dogs or the cats that are out on the street, you know, or just people that have them and they just haven't been able to take care of them. Their hair's all matted and stuff. And you're like, hey, can I groom your dog for free?
Yeah.
And then you just film the whole process and you get a really cool, like, maybe somebody already has that channel.
Probably.
I don't know. If nobody's done that, you should do that right now. I do think, though, that there's plenty of room. There's room for informational, instructional content, how to groom your own pets, but there's also just a lot of room for, like, seeing that process start to finish in a short period of time. I just think you could get millions of views on those kinds of videos.
And I think also, like, if you have a business, this is one approach that we're seeing more on YouTube these days, where someone has, let's say, a dog grooming business. And so they're actually just filming their work, and maybe they're doing it for free, maybe not. But I love that they're getting like the inside scoop of what's going on.
If you can take a topic, right, that, you know, maybe you'd be showing how to, there's a lot of how-to content on the web. But instead of just being strictly how-to, you make it a little more entertaining or you build a lot of connection. Suddenly, you take people who have maybe even just a side tangential interest in that topic, and they become viewers.
Yeah.
It's like the TV shows we watch. Like, I don't watch TV shows because I want to learn how to solve crimes, right? You watch it for the entertainment. You watch it because you come to like the characters. You can take your topic and reach a much broader audience.
The next one is vintage cars. Now, I think that this would be a super cool niche. I like looking at cars. I'm not much of a car enthusiast, but I think they're awesome. The one thing that I think would be very difficult about this is just getting access to these vehicles. Unless you have a fleet of vintage cars like Jay Leno, that would be awesome, but that's not the case for most of us. Now, there is a YouTube channel that I'm aware of. It's called The Stradman, where he started a channel about supercars. He didn't have a supercar at the time, but what he would do is he would go find these cars and he would just post sightings about them. And over the years, he's built a channel where he just started going to car shows and different things like that and explaining these cars. I mean, he was just so into it, and it was so interesting to watch him explain all the different details that me as a regular viewer just wouldn't know. And now he actually owns multiple supercars because he was just successful on YouTube over the years. So that's one where the start could be really difficult, but the more you get into the niche and involve yourself, it could get better and better.
Yeah, that's another example of sort of that barriers to being able to create content. But you find a workaround, and the power of YouTube is if you do it well, the money comes.
How about jazz music?
Oh, cool. Again, I think we're talking about potentially a really good topic. There's a lot of different angles you could take. You could go way into, you know, playing jazz music, right? You know, finding groups. You could perform literally on the channel.
Yeah.
You could just have like a jazz music lifestyle. It could be almost a little bit more vlog style. I don't know, there's 100 different ways you could go. Thinking about monetizing this, if you're helping people learn jazz, I could potentially see some sort of instruction or some sort of a course. Obviously, if you can get a big enough channel and get enough views, then you can make good money just from the YouTube Partner Program, from sponsors.
I would say as a general rule, if you can get the audience, there's probably a way to monetize the audience. So as we go through this list, I don't want you to feel demotivated. If you're in one of these niches and we're like, I don't really know how to monetize it. Like, we're literally giving 30 seconds of thought to like what we would do in these niches. So if you have an audience or you're working on building an audience, once the audience is there, you can definitely find a way to monetize them.
Basically, you haven't heard us say this is a bad idea.
Right.
It's usually just about finding the right approach to the idea.
The next one that was submitted was horror storytelling. I thought this was a really cool kind of unique niche because I thought about storytelling, and actually a couple of you just submitted storytelling, but I wanted to kind of niche this down because this one's that's just so different, but I think that this one could actually do really, really well. There are so many people who just love horror. I am not one of those people. I think it's so creepy and scary. But anyway, I think that there's kind of this cultist following around these like horror stories. And again, I think that if the audience is there, there's ways to monetize them. I mean, even just off YouTube, having some sort of Patreon would just be like such a super basic way where people in this like creative mindset, they love supporting other creators.
Yeah.
And so even just something as simple as that could probably do really well.
For me, it would be about finding the right sort of setting, maybe some good sound effects that can go with it so that the storytelling can be really effective. I would work on being able to tell stories in a really compelling way and work on your voice and whatever else. I also would work on telling the stories in a really interesting way. So you can take existing stories, known stories, and you can just tell them better. Or you can write your own stories, or you can take true stories from the news and dramatize them, make them into something a little bit more just interesting to listen to than a news report.
You could even do like, man, there's so many ideas I'm thinking, like you could even do like a reacts. You could like listen to the story with your viewers, but then like, you know how people pause the video or whatever they're listening to and like react to a certain thing, or I don't know, there's so many different ways that you could go about this. But again, I think the following is definitely there.
Absolutely.
Photoshop. This is one that I was like, wow, that's kind of specific. But I think there's probably enough out there that you could do an entire channel on Photoshop. Recently, I've been learning a new video editor. New to me, it's DaVinci Resolve. It's the free one. But it's just something that I've been learning. And the YouTube community that has built tons of videos and the tutorials around DaVinci Resolve has been awesome. And they get huge views.
If I thought about Photoshop, I mean, anything other than tutorials kind of seems a little bit out there, right? But I don't know, maybe not, right? Maybe you could create some video content that it's like kind of sped up, almost time lapse of like you creating something really, really, really cool, and just seeing how to create an amazing digital creation. I think something like that could work. I think even a mix of that and having tutorials, but also having some really cool. And then that leaves room for like a YouTube membership or a Patreon, where some of the premium content would be like, see behind the scenes of exactly how I made this cool thing that you saw me make in sped up time. That could be really neat too.
RC cars. This is a channel that I would have loved to start when I was a kid. And even now, there's something about RC cars, driving these little vehicles, that is just so fun to me. The biggest barrier to entry for me on this one would just be upfront cost. I would need to have probably multiple of these vehicles, popular ones, kind of mainstream, that maybe I'd do reviews on, or I'd be testing or showing, and they're expensive.
And I don't know how much they change from year to year, like how many new models come out and stuff. But when you are dealing with products where there's a new version every year, it's hard when the version you have is 3 years old. And so you may be constantly sort of having to replace your inventory, especially if you're going to do any tutorial videos like how to make this repair. My brother-in-law does these. He actually has a YouTube channel. It's part of what he talks about. If you do a good job of it and can make decent money from it, it might not be long before people are literally like sending you cars for free. So it's just more of an upfront cost getting yourself out there and taking an approach that's unique enough and being personable enough that people want to hang out with you.
There's an RC car channel that I've watched. I think his name's Kevin Talbot. I believe that's his name. And pretty much every video he does, he like does an upgrade on a vehicle and then he goes out and tests it and breaks it. And like I love that format because, you know, that's the kind of thing you want to see. You want to see these things going off jumps, ripping around, and breaking them is a huge part of it, like you said. And so a lot of his content is showing repairs and that sort of thing. But aside from that upfront cost, I think it'd be pretty cool. Homeschooling and fatherhood. These two I kind of put together. My first thought is that the whole fatherhood side of thing would be really cool. That doesn't seem to be something that I've come across a lot on YouTube. It's probably there. It's just something I haven't seen. It seems like more of the motherhood side of things would be more commonly covered on YouTube. But I don't know. What do you think? Do you think the audience is there for that?
I think it could be. So there's a big audience for motherhood, you know, even just like house cleaning and stuff. Women seem to really, and this is a generality, I know I'm making a generalization here, but on average, women seem to really like that connection. And they're willing to sit and watch a video where they're kind of hanging out with someone who's cleaning their house or just kind of talking about stuff about being a mom. I think with fatherhood, men don't quite crave the connection in the same way. It's a little bit different. If it was like a video showing me the cool skills or the cool like activities I could do with my kids.
I would love that.
There's that, that channel that blew up super fast, the Dad How Do I or whatever, where he's just like, these are the things I wish I'd had a dad to teach me. And so he's just like teaching basic like life skills. But really it was about being a dad, or at least having the skills to be a dad. It just applied to a broader group of people. So there's definitely an audience for it. You just might have to approach it in a way that is less obvious.
How about interior design? What do you think about that?
Honestly, I think it's great because it's so highly visual.
Yeah.
Most people are not very good at putting together the design. They're better at seeing something and being like, oh, that looks good.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely a lot of room to create content around interior design. The trick would be, again, figuring out like, what is the right feel I want for the channel? Do I want it to feel like the audience is hanging out with me? Do I want it to feel like I'm teaching them how to put together a good design? Do I want it to feel like more entertainment, like an HGTV show, right? Where I'm doing interior design for somebody else and the audience is kind of a fly on the wall watching. What's the approach that I want to take? I think if it were me, I would probably take an approach trying to hang out with the person and share information. So a little bit more of an informational, but also really connection style.
Yeah.
And then you wouldn't necessarily have to be a professional interior decorator with clients who are okay with you having a cameraman watching you all the time. You could just be in your home and kind of laying out different stuff and showing principles of good design, but kind of hanging out a lot, kind of like a lot of cleaning channels, but with interior design. I think that's how I would do it.
Yeah, I think that I would probably take the approach of like challenges.
Yeah.
I think it'd be really
that would be
cool
cool
to see like, I have these 6 items and I need to make this corner look, I want it to be this specific theme or whatever. And so maybe it's stuff that I thrifted, maybe it's trash, maybe it's, whatever the case may be. I think something like that would be really cool because then there's like this element of, is it gonna work? Is it not gonna work?
So that's the benefit of having more than 3 seconds to think about your answer.
Exactly.
I actually love that idea of challenges. Okay, I have $100 and 2 hours at the thrift store.
That would be so awesome.
And this is what I'm going for this. Like, what can I do? You could come up with hundreds of different situations, scenarios, right? Some where, it is about like keeping the costs ultra low. Maybe some of them where it's like, I only have so much time, but it's a big budget, right? Maybe save that for further down the line when you're making a lot more money.
All right, and last but not least, we have ham radios. Now, before we talk about this one, we're gonna be sending out a list of all of these ideas and more rated, kind of in a list of what we like the most, to our Channel Makers Insiders group. So if you haven't signed up for that, go to the description of this video so that you can get that list to kind of see what we think about all of these ones and all the rest that you guys submitted.
All right, so ham radio. Most of the content I see around topics like ham radio, including ham radio, are very much tutorial focused, right? Or they're reviews of specific radios. And I do think there's probably still room for some of that.
Yeah.
I think you could take it again further and make a channel that more than just like ham radio enthusiasts would want to watch. Most tutorial kind of channels that are just very tutorial focused, I watch the video I need and nothing else. I'm not subscribing, so the content isn't subscribable and it doesn't lead to lots and lots and lots of views. You just get a lot of search traffic over time. There's some cool stuff people do, the people you connect with all around the world, if you're, depending on sort of the setup that you're using. I think if I were gonna do ham radio as like my main topic, I would get the kind of setup and learn the skills to talk to those people in totally random places. I would have a camera on me while I'm talking to people, and I would cut together cool videos of those really neat interactions and mix in the information about the how-to throughout, but not have it just be a how-to channel.
Again, if there's any you want to know more about or that you'd like us to cover in a future video, please let us know in the comments. We are going to be making more videos about topics that you could create YouTube channels on so that you have a better idea of where you could go. Thank you for watching, and thank you for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video.